What's up, my island people? Welcome back to the Dear Caribbean Parents 2.0 podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly of Caribbean parenting. We are going to be discussing fatherhood today. And in the Caribbean, fatherhood is much like the world today. You don't see as many fathers as we should in the home. Many children in the Caribbean, they grow up in single parent homes. Some fortunately have their fathers in their lives, and others children don't have their fathers in their life. For the majority of these children who are growing up in a home where they don't have a father figure in their lives, you can very much tell. You can tell where the child is lacking. Fatherhood is so needed in today's days. We tend to negate the importance that a father plays in a child's life. And many times in the Caribbean, women they get pregnant, and once they get pregnant for whatever reason, the men become invisible beings. Or a man and the woman they break up in their relationship, and after being broken up, the animosity that is created between the two parties, the child becomes the victim in the game of the parents. The mother doesn't want to see the father, and the father doesn't want to support the child because the mom, him and the mom are having issues. And we see this much a lot in African American homes here as well in the US, where people they have the term deadbeat dad, where the dad is basically not supporting the child. And sometimes we have the very rare occasions where a father will be the one stepping up and taking care of the child, and when the mom has walked away. I'm thinking about this in the sense of this movie that I've watched with Kevin Hart called Fatherhood. And in this movie, Kevin Hart's wife died, and he had to step up to the plate and play the role of both the father and the mother in the life of his child. This is a role that we don't talk much about in the Caribbean, but there are a bunch of men in the Caribbean and here in the diaspora in the US and Europe who are raising their children by themselves. Specifically, I see a lot of men who are raising little girls by themselves, and it's commendable because sometimes we don't think as a father jumping into this role and really stepping up to the plate and doing the job that God has called him to do, which is to be a parent. We underestimate men a lot of times, and even in custody battles when we see parents getting divorced, majority of the times we see where the mom always gets custody of the child. She become the custodial parent. The child lives in her home, and the father gets visitation rights. It's very rarely do we see the man winning the custody battle and having the mother becoming the one that has to have visitation rights. But these things do exist, and I don't want us to downplay these situations where men become the custodial parent and the mom who now have visitation rights with her children. We don't want to put men in a stereotype where we say all men are deadbeats because it's not true. We want to break down that stigma that says once a man lays down with a woman, all he wants is that's all he wanted was the sex in the first place, and therefore, because now that he has gotten the sex, he has gotten his jump off or whatever we say in the Caribbean at times. Now he has gotten his little play and his pleasure out. The consequences that happens after sex, the man don't want to own up to his responsibilities. And yes, I do get it that there are some men that don't own up to their responsibilities, but I want to applaud the men who are stepping up to the plate and the ones who are filling the role of being both a mom and a dad in this generation to little children, especially to young girls. Girls need to have a father figure in their life. It's said what a girl sees, how a man treats her mother or any woman in her life, that's how she's gonna expect basically every guy in her life to treat her. And fellas, if you're not treating your wife your girlfriend in a manner that exemplifies honor, and you're celebrating that woman, it means you are portraying to your daughter that value, and if she's not gonna see that value within herself, you then show that example to her so she doesn't have a healthy example of what a relationship should look like. And it goes through as well for the boys. If you are always portraying this sense that says a man should be macho and a man shouldn't show his feelings. If you're telling your little boy, that he should play the field and play the game, you're not teaching him how to settle down with one woman. But what you're teaching that child is that he can go out there and play the field and break women's heart when he grows up. A father's not just there for physical support to provide in the home, but a father is there to provide moral support, to provide a sense of identity. If a child doesn't know who they are, their identity as a person, it's going to be very hard for them in adulthood, especially in their teen years, in anticipation of the adult role that they will be growing up into. A father's role in that child's life at that critical moment is so important. I want to encourage you, be intentional in the things that you're doing with your children. Be intentional in the activities as a man that you are playing in the life of your children. It may seem that you're being a punk, you're being soft in the eyes of your friends who think that's a woman's job to take their children out and have play dates with them. But it's very important for the child's safety, well-being, security, emotional stability, and everything that comes along in adulthood. A firm foundation from childhood between the parent takes a child very far in this world. It doesn't matter whether or not the mom and dad are together. If both parties can come together and basically have a mutual agreement on how they can raise their children, even though they are separated from each other and they're no longer in a relationship, that child can still grow up and have a healthy life with a mindset that is open to growth and to flourish. Yes, we see children that grow up in single parent household where the mom provided basically everything, provided financially, she provided emotionally, mentally. The mom was the one that did everything, and we see these children and they grow up and they become successful adults. And it's not impossible, but there's something that's missed, and sometimes they don't realize it until they have their own family. That's when they come to the realization that they are lacking that man's touch that they didn't get in childhood. So in today's podcast, this is what we're trying to break down the stigma for men just walking away and leaving their children and acting as to say you don't have a child in this world. And we're also breaking down the stereotype that says that all men don't take care of their children, because we see this is not true. We have great examples of men in the world today who come from the African or black descent. We see these men stepping up to the plate, and they may not be with the mother anymore, but we still see these men stepping up to the plate and they're fulfilling their role. So we have to break down the idea that says men are not good caregivers if they have to take care of a child by themselves. Men can be excellent caregivers as well. So we want our children to grow up healthy with a healthy mindset. Mom and dad come to a mutual agreement on how you should raise your children. Moms, don't use your children as weapons against their father, because for one, it may seem as if to say you're showing them that their father really don't care about them. But at the end of the day, that is still that child's father, and that child still love their father. It doesn't matter how much they are hurting on the inside and they say they hate their father. Deep down on the inside of every child, they want to have that physical connection with their father. It doesn't make sense for you as a mom to be putting down the child's father in front of them. I've seen it done. Parents put down each other in front of their child. I have a family member when she got separated from her husband. I never could understand why she never told them anything about their father, what he did or what he didn't do. She never burst their bubble about their father. She allowed them to grow up and figure out who their father is on their own without her having to paint a picture in their heads about who their father is. And today I can look back and realize that that was a wise decision because you never want to be the source of a child's anger towards their parent. Yes, a parent may have left the household, but don't let your own personal issues feed into changing that child's mindset about their parent. Allow that child to process through their feelings because even though at the moment they may be saying they hate mama, they hate dad, that child don't really hate that parent. They're processing through whatever is taking place in the household at the moment. They're processing through that, and sometimes hurt shows up as anger and it's not actually anger, it's a cry for help. If you're in a situation where, the father has left the household or the mom has left the household, get your children into therapy. There's child psychology where the child can sit down with a child therapist, and that therapist is able to go into the mind of a child and help them to process through the things that they are going through. You don't want to take for granted that whatever a child is saying out of their mouth at the moment is actually what they're feeling, because sometimes what they're feeling is the opposite of what they are saying. As parents, give each other the grace. Yes, you messed up, you may mess up along the way, but don't use each other as weapons. Don't put down each other in front of your children. Even in homes where married couples, they're putting down each other in front of their children. The mom is cussing the dad out stink, and the dad is cussing the mom out stink. And yet they're saying that they're married and they love each other. But that is not what you're showing to the child. It's an unhealthy pattern you're portraying to the child when you're having this toxic, abusive relationship in front of your children. It's best for you to go your separate ways, come to a mutual agreement, than to be in an environment you're fighting and you're always at each other's throat and you're throwing pots and pans at each other. I've seen this in the Caribbean growing up with my neighbors. Like, they will physically fight each other, and then the children were always in the middle of the fight trying to separate their parents, and that's very damaging to the psyche of a child. A child should never be in a situation where they have to physically intervene in a fist fight between their parents. But that's what we see a lot of times in Caribbean households. Men and women, they just fight and they get into fist fight and they say that they love each other instead of separated. Or if they do separate from each other, they still have this back and forth toxic animosity happening, and the child is in the middle. It may seem as if to say the child is not taking in what is happening, but children are always observing. It doesn't matter how young a child is or how old that child may be. They're always observing the things that is going on around them. In the teen years, it's even more difficult for that child to process through because that child is dealing with their own teenage emotional issues, and then you have added on to those teen years emotional issues, parental issues. Naturally, in the teen years, teenagers and their parents bump heads all the time, right? And now they are put in a situation where they have their teen issues going on. They have their own thoughts about their parents happening at the same time, and now they have a volatile situation where their parents are always arguing and fighting, and they're not together. So today is just an observation of fatherhood in the Caribbean and in the Black community. We give fathers a bad rap at times, and I understand that parents have a lot that they go through. Some of you have your own childhood trauma that you are processing through, and now you are raising your children, and you don't know how to raise these children correctly because you never saw this in your own life, and you know for a fact that there were things in your childhood that was very damaging to you emotionally, and so you don't want to pass on that same behavior to your children. And I see you trying. I see you trying to be a better parent than your parents were to you. But at the same time, I also see where you're struggling and you're not reaching out for anyone for that help. There is help. It's not in like what is in our parents' days where they didn't have as much resources as there is available today. There are so many resources that is available. So in our segment today for our stop, look and listen, my advice to you is to find some resources on parenting. You can become a better parent. YouTube is a great source for finding different parenting tips. There's parenting books. There are communities where they have parenting meetups where they sit down and you talk about the different challenges that you have as a parent. Even in the Caribbean, there are organizations where they put on different workshops about parenting and about communicating with your children. Don't be afraid to use these resources. They are there and they are valuable to you. If you want to break the stigma, find some different organization that is going to help you to connect with your children. And moms at times put away the differences that you have with the child's father so that child can form an opinion about their father for themselves. Don't tell them anything negative about their father. It may seem counterintuitive because you're figuring that the child needs to know exactly what is happening so that child don't think that you are the one that is keeping them for their father. Whatever your reasoning is, for letting your child into that adult situation. It's not good. At the moment, because you may be angry and frustrated, you may be lashing out. And quite frankly, you have your right to lash out and do whatever. But think about your children and what they are seeing from either end, from the father, what you're teaching when you are not showing up for them when you're supposed to. Single moms, take the time to sit down and talk to your children, what their thoughts are. It may surprise you, the things that they are thinking. Even though they are angry, the parents who have left children still need that other parent. And it doesn't matter how much they say, I don't need my father in my life or I don't need my mother in my life. I'm telling you, they need a parent in their life. But because they're going through and they see you going through, whatever attitude that you have, they pick up that attitude. Sometimes they do it to take sides to please whatever parent they figure needs their support. So take a moment today to listen to what your children are trying to say. Listen today, whatever you do, or they won't be there to listen to you. Listen to their problems, listen to their needs. Praise their smallest triumphs and praise their smallest deeds. Tolerate their chatter, amplify their laughter. Find out what's the matter, find out what they're after. But tell them that you love them every single night. And don't you scold them, be sure you hold them tight. Tell them everything's alright. Tomorrow's looking bright. Take a moment to listen today to what your children are trying to say. Listen today, whatever you do, and they will come back to listen to you. This is our Buzz, the sensational butterfly queen, the Vinci girl, signing out for today's episode. We were a little bit short today. I'm not sure what's happening with my voice. It's going in and out. And so I didn't want to keep this podcast a little bit long today. I just wanted to encourage you that you're doing an excellent job at being a parent. It may be frustrating and it may be tiring at times, but I want to know that someone sees you and that you're trying to break the generational cycle of toxic and dysfunctional parenting that exists in the Caribbean and in our black and brown communities. I will see you in our next episode. Until then, keep smiling and keep shining.